It may very well be that Kamala Harris ends up being the nominee, but it doesn't have to be. This connotation of taking something away from someone, to me, is so destructive. I believe that it should be earned.
Not only did he kill Medicare, he's also killed his own campaign. You would expect the growth to be further for Trump within non-college educated voters, but it's actually college educated voters that shifted the most after this debate. And now Trump is actually, for them, the candidate of more stability between the two.
All right, guys, it's been almost 2 weeks. Tomorrow will mark 2 weeks since the debate. And the fallout continues. It just doesn't stop. And it's his own team that's doing this. Trump held a rally last night. I'm going to talk to you about that in just a second. But my goodness, their own side is causing this bleeding. And it doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon. By the way, tomorrow we've got a great panic. Jenny Beth Martin is going to be here. Ashley Hayek, we're from America First. We're going to break down everything that's going on as we get ready for the Republican National Convention next week. And by the way, on Friday, Trump's former physician and now Congressman Dr. Ronnie Jackson is going to be here to answer all the medical questions that aren't getting asked, not just about this theoretical issues that are plaguing Biden, but the procedures. We heard KJP try to make this whole, this is why the Parkinson's doctor was there. By the way, they're now revising that statement that neurologist did see the President Biden. We're going to ask Ronnie Jackson about the procedures because the White House is playing a little fast and loose with the facts because people don't understand it. And it's what I tried to explain to you yesterday. The White House medical unit is not there to serve all of these military officers and enlisted folks that are there. That's not why they're there to serve the president. Do they perform some functions for these people? Yes, but it's mostly emergency based. I'm sick. I need something today, but it's not your routine care. And Ronnie Jackson can break this down for us like no one else. And what we're not seeing and what the White House press corps is missing. So make sure that you're hitting that subscribe and notification button because Friday's episode is going to be a must watch. To a lot more. We've got exclusive polling today, by the way. Where have things moved, both presidentially and congressionally? Exclusive polling today from Brent Buchanan, the founder and CEO of Cygnal Polling, one of the most accurate firms in the past couple cycles, is going to join us here to break it down. And then we've got a top Obama aide. I want to ask her point blank. Will Biden be moved? Should he be removed? Because we're seeing a lot of equivocation. So I'm going to ask the key questions today. And there's a lot to get to. I mean, think about what's happening right now. So critical with NATO in town. Okay? Because these foreign leaders are adding an aspect that I can't believe the White House. I mean, they didn't think about any of this when they asked for that debate. Hello, debate, then NATO. They thought they were going to hit it out of the park, I think. That's the problem. All right, before we do that, we talk a lot about the dangers of Democrats being in charge. Well, we're seeing the consequences of this right now. They used their power last time to hire 50,000 IRS agents. 50,000. And I've said this before, these guys don't sit around. We've talked about the Department of Justice, why they can go after people and get you to bend. Because if you've got the power of the United States government behind you, and you don't have to worry about billable hours and all that stuff, you're going to get somebody. The IRS is no different. They're coming after people because of back taxes, unpaid taxes, personal, business. It doesn't matter how much. This isn't a private sector exercise, right? And the folks at Tax Network USA have the experience to help you if you get one of these, they call them pay up notices. If the IRS sends you a letter, calls you or visited you, go talk to my friends at Tax Network USA, tnusa.com/Sean Spicer. The whole full name there, /Sean Spicer, TN USA. They've recovered billions for fellow citizens. They know what they're doing. They have the expertise, the relationships to fight for you and to get results. But when you get one of these notices, don't fend for yourself. Call my friends at Tax Network USA, 1-800-245-6000, or go to tnusa.com. But do not try to fight the IRS on your own. Please reach out to the folks at Tax Network USA to get the help and support you need. All right, let's get back to what's going on. Before I get into all the issues, I love getting your notes. I engage with everyone on the YouTube chat during live events, but also during the show. So if you're part of the premiere, we premiere at 6 p.m. Eastern every night. I love to talk to you and hear what's going on in the show, etc. But I also look at your emails, and I got a great email that I wanted to just mention. It says, my husband and I are avid watchers of you on the First TV. If you're watching it online, thank you. But if you're watching it on the First, maybe DirecTV, channel 347, or on all of the streaming platforms the First is carried, thank you there. And specifically the Sean Spicer Show, that's us. So we appreciate your direct approach and clean, concise reporting. I want to take a moment and share with you the remarkable accomplishments of our granddaughter. I'm just going to first name here. McKaylee. She recently joined the class of 2028 at the United States Naval Academy and is currently attending plebe summer. We're so blessed and very proud of Kaylee. Of course you should be. That's very cool. And I know you will also appreciate the significance of that achievement. I served on the board of visitors at the Naval Academy. President Trump appointed me, so of course I do. Thanks for the work you do and the honest reporting from Angela in Arizona. Angela, thanks for watching. Congratulations on such an amazing granddaughter. Obviously, there's a reason you're proud of her accomplishments, and I'm excited that she'll get the education and support she needs to be a great officer going forward. So thanks for watching. Thanks for your note. I appreciate it. All right. Last night, Trump held the first rally that he's held since the debate in Doral. I want to play for you a clip of what he said about Biden and take a look about what he wants to do with him respecting the debates.
So tonight, I'm officially offering Joe the chance to redeem himself in front of the entire world. So Marco and Byron and everybody, here's what we're going to do. You guys can be referees if you like. Let's do another debate this week so that Sleepy Joe Biden can prove to everyone all over the world that he has what it takes to be president. But this time it will be man-to-man, no moderators, no holes barred. Just name the place, anytime, anywhere.
He also then went on and challenged him to a round of golf, which is interesting because, of course, we all know how that would turn out. But the beautiful thing is, normally I would say don't challenge him, let him do this. But you notice the caveats, no moderators. Trump now is reeling the guy in. He's like, last time it was your rules, this time it's my rules. And no moderators, mano a mano. Now, we know Biden could never, ever accept that. I mean, my goodness, no matter what he wanted or the team wanted, people would be standing in front of him, blocking him from accepting that or going there. So Trump knew exactly what he was doing there, which is baiting the guy. Can you imagine? After this week, NATO, the press conference, and then go mano a mano with Trump, no moderator. I mean, seriously, that's not a fair fight. Trump knew exactly what he was doing, but look, he's been pitch perfect, the last couple of weeks since the debate. And this is what's going to win it for him. You just stay on it. Let Biden do what he has to do. All right. As I mentioned earlier, we've got a top pollster here. One of the most accurate pollsters last cycle to tell us where things have moved since the debate. That's coming right up. Plus, one of Obama's top aides is here with us to react to these calls for Biden to drop out. We're seeing kind of three camps, right? Get out, stay in, and then the I don't know what I want middle, which is what a lot of Dems are in right now. I'll talk about that in a second. But one of the things that I realized that we need to talk about on the show, and I need to explain to you, is what's going on with Project 2025 and the RNC platform. Okay? Project 2025 is a group of folks. I mean, Tom Homan's involved in this, who ran ICE. Johnny McAtee, who was his director of personnel. I mean, there's a lot of Trump people involved. And they're creating a database of trusted, loyal people that could fill the ranks of a second Trump term. And they're also coming up with policies under the guise of and the eye of the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation is a conservative think tank. This is what they do. They propose things. They've been doing it for years, since Reagan. They put out policies. They give you the background. It helps the conservative movement formulate actual policy. That's great. But it's different from Trump, actually. The idea was to give him a menu. It's like going into a restaurant. Here's all the options that you have. Choose what you would like. Doesn't mean you have to order everything. Doesn't mean you're going to like everything. But we want to give you options, right? The same thing's happening here. And so you're seeing Trump Denounce it. Well, why? That's what I keep getting asked. Why is Trump denouncing it? Well, partly two things. One is, on a personal level, he doesn't like the Heritage Foundation, I think, reaching out on sort of his behalf, which they're not necessarily doing, but I get why he thinks that. Like, why? Because he's now the nominee. So they were doing it initially under the guise of whoever the next nominee is, right? That was what they were doing. But obviously, Trump's like, well, I'm going to be the nominee. So by default, you're kind of saying it's me. And then the second piece of this, he doesn't want to carry the baggage. He's like, these are your ideas. I get it. I like a lot of them, but I shouldn't own everything until I say it's mine. And right now I'm running my campaign and rolling out my thing. He's got a thing, Trump 47, on his website. You want to see what he supports, what he wants to do? It's right there. Now, will he probably use some of the things from Project 2025? Sure. Will he bring some of those people in? Sure. But the Heritage Foundation is a right-leaning think tank. The left has plenty of them too. Center for American Progress, the Brookings Institute, they do the same thing. And you can't ascribe everything to Biden. I mean, you could. Why not? But Biden's got nothing else. So they're like, oh, everything in Project 2025 is now going to be owned by Trump. And Trump's like, listen, I'm not buying into that. So what did Trump do? He went out and said, I'm not part of this, because he wants to distance himself. He wants to say, here's my platform. And that's the Republican platform that got put out, those 20 points. I think these things were great, by the way. Look, it was very contract of America. It's easy to understand. You can go to your neighbor and say, here are the things that are in it. Seal the border, mass deportation, keep men out of women's sports, end inflation, make us energy independent once again, strengthen the military, tax cuts, and no tax on tips, and the weaponization of government. Oh my gosh, who's against that? These are very much things that he wants to campaign on, things you've heard Trump before. And the funny thing is, if you read the platform as put out, you'll see how Trumpian it is. It's a lot of caps, right? He literally was personally involved in crafting this. That's what he wants to say I'm for. He has no problem with it. This is what he believes and he's campaigning on. And so when you hear all this criticism of Trump 2025, it's because there's a lot of people are saying, hey, if I would love to pursue this, I've got some things I'd love him to do. That doesn't mean that he's going to do them. That doesn't mean that he supports them. But it's good for him to have options. And I want you to understand why he's coming out against it. It's not that he's against everything in that document, but the Biden team is trying to weaponize what the Heritage Foundation is doing and saying Trump supports everything in here. And he's like, whoa, hold on. Here's what I'm for. It's on my website. Here's what I'm for. It's the Republican platform. And you can see my handiwork. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that it's not that he's against it. It's that this isn't his. And maybe over time during his administration, he says, okay, it's time for, this particular policy, and Heritage helps craft it. That's great. But it's not his right now, in so much as everything that Brookings or Center for American Policy puts out is Biden's. But I think he wants to make it very clear to the media, hey, you can't just latch onto this because Biden said so. All right. I want to get back to Biden's problems, though, because they're big. George Stephanopoulos conducted this interview. This was one of the biggest rookie mistakes, and I'm actually shocked that George made it. TMZ caught up with George in New York City. Check this out.
Hey, excuse me. Hey, how you doing? Good. What do you think? Do you think Biden should step down? You talked to him more than anybody else have lately, and you could be honest. Serve 4 more years. You don't think he can serve 4 more years? All right, that's an answer.
I don't think he can serve 4 more years. Now, I think Stephanopoulos, you can see he's walking down the street. He's got his headphones on. He's probably on his way to or from the gym, caught off guard. What a rookie mistake. Oh, my God. Now, look, I've made my mistake, so I'm not, but that was a rookie mistake. Now, he's walking it back and saying, I shouldn't have taken the bait. ABC saying that he speaks for himself. But you notice no one's denying that the statement he made, that he shouldn't say 4 more years. He's not saying, I didn't mean to say that. I apologize. I got caught. No, he's saying, I should have engaged. He's not distancing himself from the analysis. And maybe part of the reason is in today's Cook Political Report. They moved 6 states towards Trump in its electoral college ratings. Right? The only ones that they're not moving to Trump just yet are the ones that Biden has to have. The ones that we did on that map to 270 that I showed you the other day. Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, where I said, that's it. That's the key to the election. Yep, they came to the same conclusion. But this is what they did. They moved Arizona, Georgia, and Nevada have gone from toss up to lean Republican. And they moved Minnesota, New Hampshire, Nebraska, 2nd Congressional District from likely Dem to lean Dem. Everything's moving in Trump's direction. This is a problem. No kidding. The reason that they're freaking out. By the way, one other fallout. You heard me mention this with the panel the other day. I said that Biden's only thing left right now is to say that, I may not walk and talk like I used to, but I know how to tell the truth. Well, the RNC responded. Brand new website out called Biden Fact Check. Biden Fact Check. And it's all of his myths, truths, lies, misstatements, gaffes for his decades. Check it out because it's kind of cool. Anyway, this is where we're at, folks, right now. This NATO meeting happening, this quote big boy press conference, which cannot believe happened. Anyway, that they're calling it that. A lot to get to with our panel today. Again, I want to bring in Brent Buchanan from Cygnal polling, one of the most accurate pollsters the last couple of cycles, to talk about where the race is shifted. Before I do that, I want to tell you about one of our great sponsors, Gravity Defyer shoes. Now, listen, I've had hip and knee issues. I've actually been dealing with this. I've gone to physical therapy. I have a pair of Gravity Defyer shoes. Here they are. They are amazing when you walk. Unbelievable cushion and support. They've got this thing called Verso technology in it. Is the stuff that you build trampolines. When you slide a pair on, it's like stepping on a spring. Your posture increases, the way the dynamic, and I don't know this. I'm sure a bunch of engineers designed this and made it really good. They're unbelievably comfortable. Your posture increases. There's a spring in your step. It takes a lot of the pressure off of those joints. Like I said, I've got hip issues, both of them, and I've got a right knee issue. I went for probably a 4-mile walk yesterday. It was amazing. And so the comfort and the support that you get out of these Gravity Defyer shoes, trust me when I tell you, it's like nothing that you've ever seen before. And I think they're pretty stylish too. You can go and check out all the different kinds they have. They have, athletic ones that are good for walking or training. They've got running ones. They've even got sandals. They've integrated this structure shoes, and they come with orthopedics for every shoe, custom orthopedics, which is great for those of you who have support issues as well. So don't wait any longer. Your feet deserve this. It's unbelievable. Experience the comfort and the pain relief that I have by going to gdefy.com and use code word SPICER for $30 off when you spend $100 or more. Again, gdefy.com. So it's Gravity Defyer, but gdefy.com. Use code word SPICER. You get code word SPICER 30. SPICER 30 for $30 off when you spend $150 or more. All right, I want to bring in Brent Buchanan from Cygnal Polling to get the latest on where things stand. All right, it's the man with the numbers. Brent, everybody's been waiting with bated breath. Talk to me about how the presidential race has changed since that big disastrous debate.
Well, I think it's gone as well for Biden after that debate as it's gone during the debate. Not only did he kill Medicare, he's also killed his own campaign in the process. And one thing that you see in polling, at least that we've seen in what we call the Trump era, is that when these disastrous moments happen for Democrats tend to just lose their ballot share a little bit. So it changes the net margin in the race. But the Republican doesn't really pick up the difference in the two. So that's historically been, I guess, since about the 2018 midterms, where we've seen this phenomenon, and you've seen it happen in special elections like New York 3 and other places, and the Democrats come home. But one thing that was really different about after this debate was the fact that Trump was able to pick up more than Biden lost on his ballot share in national polling. And again, national polling doesn't matter as much, but it's a good leading indicator to see what's shifting within different voter groups, different voter coalitions. And much of what we saw was not just Biden losing ballot share. It was Trump actually adding to his ballot share and getting to the highest point that we've had him in polling in the last 18 months.
So when you look at each candidate, Biden first and then Trump, if you will, where's Biden losing support and where's Trump gaining it?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I know.
And it's, historically with the realignment of the bases in meaning that, non-college educated voters are now Republicans and college educated voters are now Democrats. And for decades, it was the opposite. You would expect the growth to be further for Trump within non-college educated voters, but it's actually college educated voters that shifted the most after this debate. And I think that's because, they're looking for stability, and they want politics to be a little bit less crazy. That's why they left the Republican Party once Trump came onto the scene, because they saw him as chaotic. And now with this debate, that they've always had in the back of their mind, this inkling that, okay, maybe Biden isn't actually all that he has been portrayed and Weekend at Bernie's held up to be. And now Trump is actually, for them, the candidate of more stability between the two. Which they probably never thought they would get to that point in their voting calculus. So that's the first one, is college educated voters. But one of the biggest groups that swung was women. And it's fascinating because the Biden campaign has been trying to hit on the, I got rid of Roe versus Wade, and everybody wanted that. All the legal scholars said that that's what needed to happen. They've been playing that portion of Trump's response in the debate. And I think it just goes against the grain that, female voters are just going to be swayed by abortion, because they actually move significantly more towards inflation as their top issue. And this is becoming more of a pocketbook election and less about the personalities between the two, now that Biden has, used his depends on stage.
It's funny you brought that up, because I've heard people in the past, pollsters and political scientists, say the reality is people don't go out and have abortions, right? Women, especially if you're older and you've had kids, you're not thinking about, will I have an abortion? Do I need to have? But you are dealing with the realities of the economy every day. And so in terms of how the issues play into somebody's life on a day-to-day basis, one is sort of this existential theory. I think I'd like to make sure that right is preserved, if you will, versus I deal with this economy, I deal with this inflation every day when I'm at the store.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because the way voters look at how they're going to choose a candidate to vote for, they're voting to mitigate risk. So they want to make bad things go away more than they want good things to come their way. And if you think about politics, or really just human behavior in that aspect, you realize that, 2 years ago, after the Dobbs decision came out, that was an existential threat, because it was a clawing back of rights people felt that they had, even if they didn't need to use that right, like you said, with these older women who can't even have children anymore. But it's an issue to them because it's a right that existed that they felt was being taken away. And to your point, the inflation is really a right that's being taken away because I earn money and now it doesn't do enough for me, for my life to go on like I've been living my life and paying for my life. And that is much more of a front and center threat. And I think it's a lot of the reason that non-white voters have been moving towards Trump specifically, and Republicans to a little bit less extent, because they're feeling the brunt of this economy more than, say, the white majority voters are right now.
One of the things that I keep bringing up that worries me, and I get, it's not that I don't think we can't beat Kamala Harris or Gavin Newsom or Gretchen Whitmer, or frankly anyone. I think the Trump record speaks for itself. I don't like X factors, okay? Maybe I'm just a worrywart or whatever. I like knowns. You remember Donald Rumsfeld? He was very famous during that Gulf, the post 9/11 invasion of Iraq. He said, you don't know the knowns, but you know the unknown, or whatever. I can't remember the exact phrase. It sounds very Biden-esque right now. But I like knowing Biden. I like what we have. I like the known. And what you just described to me, at least maybe I'm just hearing what I want to hear, and I want you to answer this. Am I being overly cautious? But I feel like what you're saying to me is these women, these other groups that are moving, want stability. They don't like what they're seeing with Biden. They're college educated, and they say to themselves, I don't think this guy can be the leader. If you switched in anybody else, Kamala Harris, Gavin, the dynamic shifts, and maybe we're still ahead, but maybe for different reasons. So just talk to me about how concerned should we be if Biden were to say, I'm tapping out, I'm naming Kamala the person, or I'm tapping out and there's going to be a primary and it's going to be, we'll have all the governors compete for it. Am I overly concerned, or are you saying, dude, don't worry about it, we got this?
Well, look back to the debate. And if you broke it up into 15-minute segments over the, 90 minutes that it went on, the first 15 minutes was the absolute best of the debate because it showcased Biden's deficiencies. And Trump stayed on message talking about the impact that Biden's decisions and economy have on regular people. And as the debate progressed and it got into Trump being more defensive, or going after Biden in what was perceived as a mean way, as opposed to Biden's policies. You can go back and look at some of the dial tests that were being done during that, and it dropped for Trump. And so his absolute best 15 minutes of the debate was the very first part where he stayed on message. And then post-debate, when you look at what's happened, Donald Trump has said the least amount of things probably in his entire public career. And it is to his benefit. He's just letting Democrats stew within their own mess, and they're not going to be able to get out of it. And I would definitely advocate for more of that, where we don't talk about it and we just let them stew in it, because that's when people view stability as, okay, Trump is the stable candidate of the two. Even though I may not like everything he says or how he says it, he is the more stable of the two. And he's going to get rid of more problems in my life than Joe Biden is. And that's what we've got to do as Republicans, is continually make it about the problem, who caused the problem, and what we're going to do to fix it. And that's how we're going to win this election.
Okay, but that's get to, and I agree with everything you just said. But what I'm trying to get at is, if Biden said to the world today, I just heard Brent Buchanan on Sean Spicer's show, because we know they watch it. We see the clips that they post. Thank them not only for their support, but the advertising that they put towards the show. I've played that out. So we know they watch it, and they're listening to Brent Buchanan right now. And they hear the following. Does it, if Joe Biden gets out of the race and he is replaced by Kamala Harris or someone else, do they stand a better chance than Joe Biden does at beating him in November?
I think initially it would look like they stand a better chance. But really, Kamala is the only person they can swap in. One, for financial reasons, because she sits on the $250 million campaign account. She's the only one who can legally benefit from it if it's not Joe Biden. And then two, she has, pretty poor image. You can see from our poll earlier this month, right after the debate, but it's softer. So there are more people who know who she is but don't really have an opinion, or have a somewhat unfavorable opinion, versus more have a very unfavorable opinion of Biden. So I think on its face, initially, it would look like she might do better. But then once the Trump team comes in and defines her, and again, hopefully just lets her talk, because every time she does, she loses votes, that dynamic would change, and it would look more like the place you're in right now with Joe Biden versus Trump. And then if you were talking about some of these other governors who would love to be president, there's just no way in 100-something days to raise somebody's image and name identification and trustworthiness and stance on the issues in that short of a time period. So again, it would be Trump versus somebody else I don't know who's a Democrat. But the Trump team's going to have more microphone and space and oxygen to define that person than they're going to be able to define themselves. So, that's why I think the Democrats are really upset that Joe Biden is their nominee. But nobody who actually matters is stepping up to change it, because they know the next best alternative is a pretty bad alternative, and then there's really no alternatives beyond that except in fairy tale land.
Yeah, and Trump brought that up last night. Basically, something that I've been saying for a while. Not that it's some huge insightful thing, but Biden guaranteed this when he chose her to begin with. It was literally the smartest job security thing he could have done, because he chose somebody as his VP that no one would want to replace him with. That was beautiful. Let me ask you about the group that we talk about often called double haters, people who are not satisfied with either Biden or Trump, but are a big enough chunk of the electorate, 3, 4, whatever percent you tell me, that matter in this election. Where are they right now? How did the debate change that with them?
So we actually have them at about 16% of the electorate, people that are unfavorable of both, but they're not a homogenous group. And that's one thing that we're trying to push within the Republican bloodstream here in Washington, D.C., is that you can't just take anybody who's unfavorable of both and put them in a bucket. because there's different levels of unfavorability. So I kind of don't like Biden, but I really hate Trump. And then the inverse of that. And then I only somewhat dislike both of them. And then I really dislike both of them. So when you start to look at it as actually 4 buckets instead of 1, it becomes a clearer picture. And so we try not to put too much emphasis on the bigger bucket of folks, because I think what actually is a bigger risk to Trump among those groups is not that they hate both and then they vote for Biden. It's that there's actually a larger segment within that group that would likely vote for Donald Trump, even if they don't like him, just on the policies, his economic policies alone. But I worry they stay home. And so what we've identified is actually a separate group that we think is a bigger opportunity for Republicans, for Trump specifically, and that's the ticked off young, diverse working class folks. So this new coalition of potential and hopefully future Republican voters who are just really ticked off about what's going on. I actually did a focus group of this segment a couple weeks ago, and I asked them, what policies would they want to see change? What would make their lives better? And nobody brought up anything. It was actually, I put in the focus group that was going to be like 20 minutes of discussion, and it was crickets instead. And as the moderator, you're not trying to push something one way or the other. And I said, can I step out, take my moderator hat off for a second and just make a statement? And you tell me if you agree with it or not. I said, everything is so bad, you don't even know where to start. And then I just went quiet. And these voters, everybody's shaking their head, and that got them talking. And that's when we decided that from a messaging standpoint, this is not necessarily the inflation election, it's the frustration election. And the candidate who can empathize with that, and I think Donald Trump's in a much better spot, and Republican candidates down ballot need to figure this out too, is how to talk to that group, because that group showing up or staying home is going to be the difference between small and large victories on November 5th.
Yeah, I always find when pollsters ask a question, what's your number one issue? In this election cycle, I don't have a number one. I've got a number like 1 through 10, and they're all not, A, they're somewhat intertwined, B, they're all kind of like depending on the day. But so it's always interesting when I feel like, what's the number one issue that you're voting on? I'm like, well, I don't know that I have a 1. I've got like a 1 through 10, and they're all about equal, but they're all intertwined. I want to ask you one last question though, because one of the things that's at least driving the Democrats who are coming out against Biden is that they also believe that he's not just going to lose, but he's going to take the House and the Senate with him. In your poll, what does that congressional ballot look like, and how concerned should they be if you're a Democrat on the ballot right now?
Well, we have for the last 18 months had the national generic congressional ballot in what I call binary. 1 0 1 0 1 0, and for the first time ever, it popped to the Republicans having the largest lead, the largest shift in the generic ballot. And again, much of this is coming off of the Democrats, and so in this case, it did not look like the presidential ballot in that the gain was actually a lot towards the Republican, like it was for Trump. And we've seen this, and we've got articles on our blog on our website that talk about how these disaffected Democrats will eventually come home, and that's what we need to be worried about. But let's relish in the sun for a moment this large shift in the opportunity that this brings within congressional races. I mean, I was just reading an article this morning where Democrats were freaking out that a seat that Biden won handily in New York wasn't even on the map, had Biden only up by 1 point. Post-debate. And so, if we are going to see any shifts at the top of the ticket, it's going to be because these congressional Democrats start getting polling data back that not just shows them losing ballot shares, but shows Republicans getting higher ballot shares in these seats than they've ever seen in their polling. And a lot of that was by younger voters. And so as we go back to talking about the frustration election instead of the inflation election, that's one thing I thought that congressional Republicans whiffed on in 22 was saying prices are high. Look at me pumping gas. Gas is stupid expensive right now. Vote for me. And they never explained or even empathized with how hard life was getting by, making paycheck to paycheck. And so I think that it looks really good right now. Can we hold it? That is completely dependent on if we're talking to the right voter group, this ticked off young, diverse working class coalition, and if we're empathizing with them about their frustration so they even will listen to us in the first place.
All right. Brent Buchanan, president and founder of Cygnal. Your polling is always among the best in the cycles that have gone past. So I guarantee that this is where the race stands now. Brent, thanks for joining us as always.
Hey, thanks, Sean.
Appreciate Brent for that. Now let's bring in a Democrat, a top Obama aide, Johanna Maska. She served as Obama's director of press advance, to find out if Democrats are concerned about these numbers. All right, Johanna, I want to start with a tweet that is from a former colleague of yours that I'm sure you're familiar with, your buddy David Axelrod. This is what he wrote the other day. The president is rightfully proud of his record, but he's dangerously out of touch with the concerns people have about his capabilities, his capacities, rather, moving forward, and his standing in this race. 4 years ago at this time, he was 10 points ahead of Trump. Today, he is 6 points behind. Mm-hmm. What do you think the party should do? I mean, you've got three camps as far as I can see: get out, stay, and the I don't want to take a stance group of people like Nancy Pelosi.
I saw David Axelrod a couple weeks ago, and he was already talking about how, this election is between creaky and crazy. And that debate performance showed it's not just creaky. It's like really, can't get a sentence out. It was really frustrating for all of us who do believe that the Democrats have a message this election that they should be delivering. So I am in the camp where I think that Biden should step aside and we should have a full open convention where we have some of our new voices, state leaders who come forward, present their case, that we have multiple rounds of voting, and that we get to a point in which the best candidate can win. Maybe that candidate ends up being Kamala Harris, but it doesn't have to be. And those people who are saying, Kamala deserves it and the like, had Obama been president during, our reelect, had he passed away and us had to have a new candidate, it would not have automatically gone to Joe Biden. That whole notion that it actually goes to the DNC.
Wait, hold on. There's a difference in my opinion, and you're the Democrat, so I'll let you weigh in because but here's the difference. Obama passing away, I don't mean to wish. Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
had that happened, you would have gone from having potentially the first black president to a creepy old white guy. I think that's different than right now. You're talking about whether or not to take it from the first female black, vice president, who, by the way, represents the backbone of your party. There's a big difference if the white guy got robbed of it. So just tell me if I'm wrong. Because I don't think that too many people would have gotten upset that the white guy didn't get it. Now I think taking it away from the first female black vice president is a very, very different dynamic.
This connotation of taking something away from someone, to me, is so destructive. I believe that it should be earned. I believe that the power and the gravitas of this office needs to be earned. And I believe that it is one of those things that, good leaders emerge from our party because they can share the optimistic view of America, both in policy and in prose. They have to be able to deliver that message. And so I don't believe that anyone is taking anything away from someone. And this Joe Biden, who's saying,
so can I play this out? I just want to play this out for you on two fronts. The political front, which is, I get it. I get your philosophical argument and it makes sense on paper, right? But what I'm arguing is, politically speaking, how were black women who have been the backbone of the Democratic Party, knocking on doors, making phone calls, right? How are they going to perceive the fact? And this gets into the other part of the earning it. Okay, if I'm Kamala Harris, I say, I've stood by Joe Biden for 4 years. I've been the vice president, I've earned it. I've been in the meetings. I've gotten ready. I'm on the ticket. The delegates basically did select me. They chose me as the number 2. So the process has played out. I'm the person. That's the role of the vice president, to step in when the president doesn't. So playing devil's advocate for a second, can't you at least agree that to some aspect of the party is going to say, that's what she did. She earned it.
There's some aspect of the party that always has problems with whatever you do. But this, notion of any minority group all thinking alike, I just have so many problems with that, right? Like any community has diversity amongst the community. So people have different perspectives.
That's very Republican of you, by the way.
We are way more than just our skin color, our gender, anything like that. So,
Okay, come on over. The water's warm.
Oh, Sean, you know that, I believe that none of us have all views that align with Democrats or that Republicans, and that we should have a conversation in America about what we want to see in our future leadership. It may very well be that Kamala Harris ends up being the nominee because, to your point, just the reality of it, most of these delegates are there because they were, through a nominating process, delegates for Biden and for Harris. So they are going to likely be inclined, especially if Joe Biden was to say, okay, I'm stepping aside, which doesn't look likely today, but you never know. If he says that, then he says, I endorse Kamala Harris. It would still be a process. Most of them would likely go with that. But I believe we'd be stronger as a party if we actually played it out and everybody had to make their case.
So let me ask you the logistical question,
Mm-hmm.
because that's your wheelhouse has really been on the logistics side of campaigns. I've done 2 conventions at the highest level. I started going to my first one in '96. I don't know how you would logistically pull off what you're talking about, right? Because it's not, when you do a 4-day scripted convention, it's really easy. The nominee gives the speech on Thursday, the VP on Wednesday, you do party business one day, Tuesday, boom, and then everyone walks out. Yeah. I logistically, do you really think that you could pull off what you described, what James Carville described in this New York Times piece yesterday, in 4 days in Chicago?
I volunteer to help. I'm very serious, Sean. If we just let ourselves imagine what could be,
unburdened by the.
Oh God, you guys are going to town with that one. But no, if we actually just, imagine what could be. Look, the Democrats have had a really difficult time in a very divided media environment to get their message out to people. We would have more eyes on the convention. And of course, we have some logistical nightmares just because of Ohio. Although we're unlikely to win Ohio, we are supposed to get them a name for the ballot before our convention. Yes. But if we did get it to a point where we said, okay, we're just going to put Joe Biden on the name, for Ohio, and then we're going to actually have him, basically release his delegates, and then it's a full-on convention fight. You would have a number of slots where you would have to get people who wants to, put their hat in. This notion, Biden says, run against me. Nobody's going to run against him because they don't want to wound him further. But if it's full open, there'd be a lot of people lining up for that convention stage.
Hey, listen, I'm pro this. I mean, actually, I'm not. I want Biden to stay in, just so we're clear. But
I know.
I would love to see the logistics of this. I mean, maybe with all your talent, you could help him pull it off. But I mean, I'm torn between wanting to watch that in Chicago and I want Joe Biden to stay in. I want to ask you one last thing because I know your time is tight. Yeah. The House today is voting on the SAVE Act, okay, which will require federal ID to vote in a federal election. The administration has come out with what they call a SAP, a Statement of Administration Policy, against it. The House leadership is whipping against it. Yeah. What is your position on whether or not people should have to show ID in a federal election?
It's really easy for me, who has always had an ID, to believe that there would be no barriers and that should be something that we could present. The issue Democrats have with it is the number of people who are already marginalized in our society, including people who by circumstantial situations end up homeless and they don't have an ID, and they don't want to put that barrier to entry. I think it's a great debate. I think it's more complicated than just, all of a sudden we're going to blanket this, because it also has to do with state laws. So I think, Sean, it's worth the debate. I would have my ID, but I know that there are a lot of people who don't have access to the ID. And again, it's not because they're not U.S. citizens. It's because that they just don't have their ID because they've lost it, because they've been homeless, because they have no mailing address. There are other complications that Democrats are concerned about.
But you don't think those same people access any government benefits that also require
Unfortunately, I wish they would have an easier way to access benefits. I think that's why Republicans believe in churches and charities, because it is so hard for, those people who are already unhoused to find the ability to fill out all that paperwork and get the benefits that they, should be able to get. I mean, this is the problem, right? I think we all agree we don't want poverty, childhood poverty, and yet getting those kids the food that they need, the resources that they need proves to be incredibly difficult. In California, we try to do things through the schools. We try to give people, as much as they can so that they can be better themselves. I would love to have this debate. We are going to have so many years to have this debate. Who knows who's going to be our candidate? I know who's going to be yours. I'm going to be watching him at the convention next week.
Don't worry. When he's president, and we have a Republican House and Senate, we'll pass it, and then you can watch that debate happen. Johanna, I know our time is tight. Thank you for squeezing us in today.
It was awesome to join you. I think we're going to keep the House. So you'll have to deal with Democrats yet, Sean. We'll see.
We'll see on that. Anyway, you stay with Biden, and we'll take the House and the Senate.
Well, me or the party? That's a different thing, We'll see.
Sure. All right. Thanks for joining us today.
Of course.
You bet. All right, guys, thanks for watching. As I said, big shows the rest of the week. Panel discussion tomorrow, Dr. Ronnie Jackson on Friday. Continue to sign up for that Substack that I had mentioned, SeanSpicer.com. Front Row Joe's, the movie, is out. Go to SalemNow.com. You can even order the DVD if you don't want to download it or stream it. That will come. All of that's available at SalemNow.com. Thanks for subscribing. Hit that notification button. Go to YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeart, wherever you get those. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Sean Spicer Show. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.